Okay, welcome everyone to today's TDG meeting. We've got a fair bit to get through today. I'll jump to the agenda. So we've got our usual business, approval minutes, and some other updates. And then we've got a number of proposals we want to work through today. So today is our last opportunity to get some features in prior to the connectathon. So hopefully we can squeeze in to the connectathon snapshot some of the features we agree on today, as well as ones we're still working on. But then that'll give us some things to test at the connectathon in March. So getting through as many of these decisions as possible today will help us have some things to test. It's a bit optimistic, probably. Whether we get through all of these or not is another thing, but we'll do our best to get through a number of these proposals. So I'll be taking you through those with Andy helping walk through them. We might jump into now the usual business. So we want to do the approval of the previous minutes. So these were sent out about a week ago, I think. So we have the minutes here on the Confluence page. They've been put together. We've got a copy of the recording. We've got the decisions that were made. They're all documented there. Does anyone want any more time to review them or have any other comments? And if not, does someone want a motion to accept these minutes?
Happy to motion, Jai.
Thanks, Joe. Do we have a second for that motion to accept the minutes?
I'll second. Run.
I think Soren got in there first. Thanks, Soren. So I will launch a poll to accept these minutes. Watch. Hopefully you'll see that poll. Yep, if you weren't at the meeting, you can abstain, but if you were and have looked at the minutes, please vote. It looks like we've got most people have voted now, so I'll just end that poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ending that poll. And so we have 17 affirmative, 0 negative, and 9 abstained. So that motion has passed. Okay, jumping on to minutes. To action items. We've got a number of action items here. We've got a proposed value set for task business status. That was sent out again to the TDG last week with our other proposals. So we'll try and get to that one today. It's the last item on our agenda today, so we may not get there, but it is there for us ready to vote on if we want. The second action item we've got here is about the proposal for task.code binding. Now, I think we can actually close that action item given we've gone with a different approach. I will just show you that window. I'll put it in the chat as well. Hold along. So we were looking at a proposal here to use task.code to identify the different types of tasks that we were going to use here. And we had some proposals here that we might have pathology fulfillment, imaging fulfillment, managing our groups and the like. Now we've actually gone with a different approach for this and have implemented tags for identifying our different types of tasks. That was made in previous decisions that we've gone through the TDG. I'll just show you that. Zoom that in a bit. If we have a look at our profiles and extension, under eRequesting task, we are using a tag slice, and we have a value set which has our different types of tags: fulfillment task or fulfillment task group. So originally there was thinking about using the, task.code for that. The way we've implemented for the moment is actually using tags on tasks. So I think for the moment we can close that action item. I don't know if anyone has any comments or thinks that we need to keep this proposal open.
Just say we went up and down with international on Zulip too about this, and it was, they deemed .code was not for this purpose, so that's why we've moved away from it.
Okay. If anyone thinks otherwise, then we can keep this open, but I think we can close that action item because we've taken a different approach. Happy to do that. I don't hear any objections, so we'll do that. For the CDG and TDG ground principles for inclusion, this is more about setting up the harmonization group. That's still in progress between CDG and TDG. Still in progress. And then I think we had some from the last meeting. I see Jay came on camera, good timing. There's a couple here for you. Not sure what the state of following up for use of related person for consent withdrawal and my health record policy reference URI.
Just waiting on some advice for both of those, so I'll bring that to the next meeting.
Yep, okay. And then there's one there for Angus and Rosemary around checking what happens currently at Sonic and SA Pathology with copy 2.
Sorry, I haven't done that.
No, okay. I don't know if Rosemary's on the call, whether you followed up with SA Pathology at all.
Writing myself a note now.
Okay. That's right. That's why we keep these action items at each meeting, because sometimes they get forgotten about. So that's right. We can have those left to carry over to the next meeting. Just also making people aware about the Trans-Tasman Symposium and Fire Work Group meetings. So this is the one-day event. That's the day before the Connectathon in Sydney. Now, the Connectathon sold out. The in-person symposium is sold out, but we still do have tickets for the Fire Work Group meetings. So we're going to run an eRequesting TDG on that day. It'll be in the last session of the day. Don't have exact times yet, but we'll have details as soon as they're available. We'll let you know. So that'll be Q4. It will be a hybrid. So if you're unable to make it in person, you will be able to participate in Teams. It'll be in the Microsoft Office. So we'll likely put that out through Microsoft Teams. In this eRequesting TDG, we'd like to talk about service request groups. I think it's a good opportunity where we've got some face-to-face, as well as the day before the Connectathon. Gives us a good opportunity to have a focus session on service request groups and the implications of that. So if you would like to come to this, like I said, if you're in Sydney, there is still tickets available. I'll just show you that. I'll put the link in the chat in a second. Actually, I can do it right now. If you do get tickets, okay, you'll see the symposium is sold out, but there are still tickets available for the workgroup meeting. So if you want to come in person, you can still come to that. Like I said, it will be hybrid. We don't have the connection details yet, but once we have them, we'll send them out to TDG so anyone can join virtually as well. But if you're in Sydney, we'd love to see you there for that. I think we're the last session of the day too. So if you're coming in for the Connectathon and going to be in Sydney the day before, there's an opportunity there for you to come. So leading into then the Connectathon, like I said, the Connectathon is sold out in 19th and 20th of March. But if you want to join the wait list, you can send an email to events@hl7.com.au. If you have tickets and you're no longer able able to attend, please send an email as well so that those tickets can be freed up and made available to others. So we can let everyone who wants to come. All right. Just keeping this on our radar, the ballot comments, we still haven't finalised. We have one outstanding issue, which is pregnancy status, which we're going to go through very shortly. Hopefully that will then get us complete on the ballot for comment issues, the reconciliation on those. We have a few outstanding issues still to apply, but hopefully with some decisions we get through in this meeting, we'll then be able to apply those as well. So we're getting close. It's hanging over us a little bit, but hopefully some decisions we get through today, we can finalise that ballot for comment. Okay. Just another update. I think last meeting we went through default obligations and conformance requirements. So these were sort of default obligations for must support elements and default conformance requirements for search parameters, resources, RESTful interactions. And we want to apply these defaults unless we've made specific decisions otherwise. So this is to help streamline our decision-making process and apply the defaults where needed. But as we went through this over the last week, applying them to some of the previous decisions, we noticed a couple of omissions. So I just want to go through those quickly now. Jump to this. Where's that? Where's that one? Okay, so I'll put it in the chat for everyone following all at home. We agreed to these in the last meeting. So these are our default obligations that we're going to have. These are the when an element is must support and its cardinality is 0. These are the obligations we're going to apply to the different actors when the cardinality is 1. We've got resource implementation conformance, search parameter conformance, all these defaults, which are all good. But as we were applying some of these, there was a couple of omissions I found. So I'll put in the comments down the bottom here some additions we would like to make. So one of these is we have agreed on default conformance requirements to support resource types. However, we don't have default conformance for supported profiles. So for example, we've required that an AU eRequesting server shall support a resource type, for example, service request. We haven't defined the default conformance for the supported profiles like AU eRequesting pathology request or AU eRequesting imaging request. So I want to propose that we default conformance requirements for supported profiles would be shall across all actors. We'll just show you what that looks like in a capability statement. So if we go to our capability statements, I'll pick server, most complete at the moment. So we have all the different resource types that this actor needs to support. So example here, we've got the resource type, which is a service request, and we're saying that an AU eRequesting server shall support a service request. But then down here, we say the supported profiles. So we've got supported profiles for pathology request and supported profile for eRequesting imaging request. It doesn't display currently in the rendering of a capability statement, but there are actually also obligations under this around shall support a pathology request or shall support an imaging request. So that's something we missed because it doesn't show in the rendering, but it is in there in the computable part of the capability statement around that. So the basic premise here is, here's another example here. We're saying coverage that should, it's not a shall, it should support coverage. But the logic would be, if you support coverage, you must support the AU eRequesting variation of coverage, right? So there's no point supporting coverage. You won't be supporting eRequesting if you don't support the eRequesting coverage. So this proposal is saying, oh, got too many pages, that the default for conformance on AU eRequesting supported profiles is always shall. If you support the resource type, you shall support the eRequesting profiles that go with that. Does that make enough sense? Are there any questions on that one?
It's kind of a weird technicality, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a technicality. It's absolutely technicality. The other one that looks like we've missed is we've said further up here about where was it? Search parameters. Okay. We're saying, oh, actually it was the RESTful interactions, I think it was. We're saying here like an eRequest service shall support search, right, on each of these profiles, but we don't actually have any default search parameters. The underscore ID search parameter is pretty universally used to pull out by ID. You can then add other search parameters to further refine it. Again, thinking that all the profiles that we add should at least have a search parameter of underscore ID. So you can search for them by the ID. And by putting that in there, we'll then have a search parameter on all of our profiles. We're saying the server has to implement search. The placer, the filler, and the patient may use the search. We're not going to dictate that they have to use the ID search, but they may want to use it. And then also for all other search parameters that we may specify, and then also search modifiers like underscore include and the like. The default conformance on those we'll be looking at is the server has to support it because any of the other actors may want to use it. So we'd have a shall as the default conformance on that, and mays on the others. They may want to use those search parameters, but they don't have to.
So when is that sort of like a bucket of all other specified search parameters?
Everything else. It's like anything, because what we've done, I mean, we've done it through the ballot for comment. We've said that we want to support all these search parameters on the task resource, or all these search parameters on the service request profile, but we didn't do all of the conformance for each of the actors. So we can't put it in the capability statement. We can't put the conformance in there. I can actually show you one of these as well. If we have a look at, our profiles and extensions, and we look at, say, I think it might be task diagnostic request. Okay, we've got here, these are all the search parameters we've specified. We did something before the connectathon last year and said, let's put all the obligations on the server to be shall, but we've actually been silent and haven't said anything about the other actors. So really by just having a default, if we add a search parameter to a profile, what would be the default? It would be shall for server, may on everything else, just so that we can complete this without having to make all these explicit decisions every time we add a search parameter.
I'm just more worried about the modifiers. The
modifiers are just the includes. I think we've got down the bottom here, it says includes. They're technically search parameters, but they are treated slightly different.
But Fire formally has things called modifiers, which includes is not one of. The modifiers are gender : missing equals true.
Yeah.
And
so it's only the ones that we've actually specified, right? So if we've said, so not by default, everything that Fire supports, it's only like, so we would make a decision, which we already have. We're saying for the eRequesting task diagnostic request, we want to support these search parameters. And then we can say, and modifiers, we can say what modifiers we want as part of that. And then we'll say, and we'll apply the default conformance, which is the server shall support it, placer may, filler may.
Right. So we're explicitly stating a modifier when we want to use one, not just a big bucket of all the modifiers.
Yeah, that's the term here, specified. It's vague,
specified.
But,
okay.
That was the intent of that word, was to say when we've specified we're going to use this. The defaults would apply. Sorry, Jamie, I saw your hand up and it went away. Yeah.
That answered my question. I just wanted to clarify if it was applying to everything possible, or if it's only when we've said we'll support this, that this is what the conformance will be here.
That was the intent, just specified. We've already agreed we want a search parameter. And this is where, so we don't have to then go make a decision, okay, what's the conformance on the server? What's the conformance on the placer? What's the conformance on the filler? And sort of have to make lots and lots of decisions. If in general, I mean, we can always vary this whenever there's an exception, we'll say, and the placer shall support or whatever. So we can make those variations where we need to, but as a default, the starting position, this is where we would be.
I'm happy to move those two changes. So Michael's comments exactly as he specified on the Confluence page.
Jamie, do you just have a question?
Just one more question, Michael, sorry, and Michael Osborne, sorry, before we move ahead with that. Is the intent that we can apply these retrospectively, so agree on them and apply them retrospectively? And is that something that we could look at today, like agreeing to today?
I think that would help because we have lots of gaps at the moment where we haven't made these decisions in the past. I mean, a very good example is that one I just showed you here, where we've made no decision on anything here for placer, filler, patient. If we apply the defaults where we haven't applied it, that will make the IG more complete. So otherwise, we're going to have to come through and make specific decisions on these later. If we're able to apply it retrospectively, I think that would make.
I think it's pretty safe. We kind of went through this, that server has to support everything.
Yeah.
Places and fillers obviously need to support certain ones to do what they need to do, but we're not going to dictate what they are. And because the server supports everything, the fillers and placer are free to use any of those supported things on the server, but we're not going to go down to the degree of saying you must do it this way.
Yeah, and if someone's doing conformance in the future, it would, if we do are firmer, then they potentially would fail conformance because they haven't built a search in a particular way. So
I'm happy to change my motion so that it's retrospective on our current profiles.
okay. Is there any other questions about any of this? If not, does someone want to second that?
Sorry, maybe just a,
Sorry, Jamie.
Go,
Did you
Jamie.
want, sorry.
just one more clarification on that. So just want to clarify, so when we're implementing this in the IG, if there is an existing agreed conformance on a search parameter and this is different, that we will use this new agreed default. Does that make sense? Sorry.
I felt that was wrong in the sense if we override the defaults, the override apply. Like there'll be situations where we'll say we in the future where we may say, oh no, the placer has to do this, and therefore the defaults are now being overridden. We just don't have that scenario yet.
Yeah, so happy for us to agree in future if we like, say for example, we're saying for _ID for placer, it has to be shall in the future, just as an example. That's fine. But for the ones that we're applying retrospectively, if something's already in the IG and we're now applying these defaults retrospectively, do we override what is already or what may already be there with this new agreed default, or leave as is?
Is that because some of them might be incorrect, or just we haven't been consistent? What's the reason for that?
I think it's both.
Yeah, without looking, I couldn't be sure, but it may just be inconsistencies because decisions have been made at different steps along the line. But just wanting it clear from my perspective when we're implementing this in the IG, what exactly
So we're between a rock and a hard place, aren't we? Because if you implement it across the board, you don't know what you stomped over, and yet we're not sure what that thing you stomp over might be to even consider it. That's kind of the trap we're in, isn't it?
And I understand, like if we're putting this over everything, then there will be consistency, and perhaps it can be that we come back to it and review it if we find that it's inappropriate. But I just wanted to clarify that that was the intent.
Could we bring those ones that we stomped over back to the TDG for decisions?
Do you know, Jamie? You won't know, will you? Like,
I haven't looked. Like I couldn't tell you off the top of my head if it even applies to any. It could apply to none. I just.
because I'd like to say, we need to, if it's stomping over something, we need to review it. But I'm not. I don't want to put a huge burden on you that you have to manually now itty bitty look at everything. Is that what I'm doing?
That's fine because we'll be going in and applying it one by one anyway, so we can add that stipulation.
Yeah, I think if there's a contradiction, if you're applying to something and we've already stated something contradictory, then I think we have to consider that rather than
Review
just stomp it.
Okay.
Steph?
I want to say that I did have a look at some of the ones that we had previously done, and we don't have that many profiles anyway, and it seems like they were copy paste. So I think we should apply the defaults everywhere for consistency, and if there's issues, we can raise that later.
Yeah, I'm not aware.
But the
of it.
defaults should apply.
I'm not against that approach because I'm not aware of any. Just worried that we lose something and we're unaware.
There will be the opportunities for testing this, right? So, I mean, and it's going to go through a ballot. But yeah, it's whatever everyone's comfortable with. If we're more comfortable with not applying defaults everywhere, we can do that and come back for explicit decisions, or we can blanket it.
When we say defaults, it's more than just the search parameters and that,
Yeah,
and the one above. It's all the defaults, isn't it? So
it's all of
these
these
things.
defaults. Yeah. Maybe to be on the safe side, we apply the defaults where nothing has been applied and create a list to bring back to the TDG on variations so we can review in a separate decision.
I move that for Michael. Whatever he just said.
All right. I can't motion on the chair, so but Mike, do you want to summarize, if you can, what you think what you've motioned?
So what I've motioned is those two comments on the Confluence page will be applied. Where there's a difference in the profile conformance, that we will make a list of those differences and bring them back to the TDG for consensus. Is that about right?
Yeah, so these changes will be applied retrospectively where there have been no previous decisions.
Yes.
I think. And where there are variations from this, we'll bring it back for another decision.
Yes.
Are we clear on that? Any?
Yep. I second Michael's proposal.
Sorry, I wanted to be a second.
Sorry, you go. Yeah, you do it. Sorry.
Yeah, I wanted to add that it's important to have this information for Inferno tests, because with EU core we were struggling a lot when we have some parameters, and for them there was no conformance verbs. So yeah, that's I would like to have this explicitly defined in the IG.
Okay. All right. So we've got Michael motioned. Who'd we decide on the second? Was that you were there?
Yeah, I would like to be the second.
Okay. Shelley, are you good with the motion? You're clear on what we're getting there?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. All right. I will launch a poll. Okay, so this is the motion on applying these defaults. And I think we have most people voted. Let's go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in that poll. So we had 15 affirmative plus 1, so 16 affirmative, 0 negative, and 9 abstain. So the motion is passed. Thanks, everyone. Okay. Now getting on to the meaty one, pregnancy status. So this proposal has been hanging around for a while now. So it was originally raised as a ballot for comment issue. I think Angus actually raised this one. So this was the via 47006 pregnancy status for diagnostic requests. So we had a discussion about it, I think in our face-to-face in Melbourne last year in November, maybe. We couldn't come to a conclusion. It's been kicking around for a little while now. So we've put together a proposal that was sent out last week. And that is essentially an observation that will be on supporting info on the diagnostic request profile, looking to reuse the IPS observation pregnancy status, which references a pregnancy status IPS value set. And we've consulted the AUCDI authors on this to get their support for what we're proposing. And the advice that they've come back with is that they're happy for us to go forward with this proposal as long as we constrain it to pregnant only as the only value that can be used, while they look at developing the pregnancy summary data group, which is looking in AUCDI R3+. So they haven't developed that data group yet. They're comfortable with us using pregnant because that won't change, but the variations on pregnant may change in the future. So they want to work through that before we have a more broader value set. So I might just walk through that proposal. I will put this in the chat so you can see it for yourself. Okay. So this proposal, it's resolution to this ballot comment item. So this is our last outstanding ballot for comment item to resolve. So whatever we decide today on pregnancy status will replace this resolution. This was a draft resolution from previously. It's very similar, but whatever we decide today will become the resolution for this ballot for comment issue. So this description was about having pregnancy status available. So we can use that. So what we're looking at here is adding to the eRequesting diagnostic request profile, a 0 to 1, so optional, must support element for an observation profile for pregnancy status. So I've got a comment over here. It's probably a little bit deceptive, but pregnancy status will be implemented in the eRequesting diagnostic request profile as a slice on supporting info. So just show you what that would look like. And we have our abstract profile, which is diagnostic request, that imaging request and pathology request inherit from. So this would be on the abstract profile, meaning that it can be used in both imaging and pathology. And it will be, if we look at the key elements, there is a supporting info element. Should be here somewhere. Maybe I actually need to go to snapshot.
In alphabetical order, so it's one.
There we go. It is in alphabetical order. Yeah, supporting info. So, so this is for additional clinical information. It's a 0 to many and can reference any resource. So what we would be looking at here is adding a slice to supporting info for pregnancy status. That will be optional. You can have 0 or 1 pregnancy status on there under supporting info. And it would reference the IPS observation profile. I'll try and zoom this in a little bit. So this is an existing profile that's developed as part of IPS, and it's IPS observation, which is pregnancy. So this is the current IPS observation. So we'll be looking at using this as is. No changes, just reference the IPS pregnancy status. That pregnancy status observation has a value, which is a codable concept, which references a pregnancy status IPS value set. This value set has a number of values in the current published version, which had pregnant, not pregnant, unknown. Just note that the current draft version has some additional values in here. It's got not pregnant, pregnancy test result unconfirmed, possibly pregnant. But what we would be looking at doing for eRequesting is constraining that value to pregnant only. So this is the advice that we've got from the AUCDI authors. It's basically, you can probably read it yourself, but the key element out of this is that a pregnancy summary concept, which will contain data elements for status, is in the backlog for AUCDI R3+, which will describe an individual's pregnancy status within a signal pregnancy to potentially include more granular states encompassing a continuum of states ranging from actively trying to conceive, including IVF, to different post-pregnancy states. Through pregnant to post-pregnancy stage. Each of these states has different clinical implications, necessitating varied responses and treatments, which makes comprehensive documentation crucial. So in the eRequesting use case, we think the pregnancy status feature proposal for eRequesting by R1 would align to the future pregnancy status concept if the value set is constrained to pregnant only. This will mean that when AUCDI and the CDG develop a pregnancy summary data group with the continuum states, it will match up and not cause conflict, and this provides a good starting point to potentially expand in the future. So we've sought that advice from the AUCDI authors. By us constraining to pregnant only means that we're not going to conflict with any variations of this over time. Once they've done that work, we can then expand it out to the variation, any variations that are relevant for eRequesting, which would be so. Yep.
Yeah, are we going to create a specific profile in eRequesting for observation to restrict the value set?
Unlikely. We're just playing with it at the moment. The thought for implementation we have at the moment is that we will reference IPS observation as is. So we will not create our own profile. We will just reference IPS observation and then put an invariant restricting the value to only pregnant. So if that observation contained a value anything other than pregnant, it would reject it. The validator would reject it, but it's just an invariant. So we wouldn't change the value set. We won't create our own profile, but we will put an invariant that will check if the value is pregnant and then otherwise reject it. So that seems like the most future-proof way of doing it. By just putting that particular restriction on invariant eRequesting. Heath?
Perhaps I missed a whole discussion around why using IPS pregnancy, but it's going to be problematic because of your subject reference to a patient IPS. You're going to get into a whole mess.
My understanding is that you could still use an AU call patient in there.
No.
No?
No. This will fail validation because it is not patient IPS. It is mandatory and only at patient IPS.
AU call patient profile, a resource you provide complies.
Yeah, but you need to specify both profiles in the meta section.
We need to profile it ourselves and then put both IPS in. But then we wouldn't put IPS because we wouldn't want breaks it then.
Yeah. So for today, though, I understand that potential problem. we don't want to agree on the implementation approach, that we may have to play around with this a bit to get it to work exactly what we want. The
Okay.
idea is that we want to reuse the IPS observation, right? We may have to profile it, like you said,
Yep.
and do that. If
Okay.
we don't have to, we would like not to, but ultimately implementation detail that we need it to work, obviously. And we need it to work if we're providing an AU core patient. So I think there's a few different ways we can do that. Given we're doing IPS work at the same time in AU patient summary, we will probably leverage the learnings and that from what's going on there about what we do to make this work.
Okay, so that decision is not set in concrete at the moment, but
no,
I mean,
and it's not in this proposal.
Mhm.
Essentially, that came up yesterday. It was a suggestion that that's the way we might be able to do it. We did a little bit of prototyping on it yesterday, but yeah, it's not set in stone.
final comment, I would escalate it up to AU core. Give them a requirement. And then AU core will probably look into it for you. But anyway, we'll take that offline. It's not for today's agenda. It's cool.
Yeah, that is an option. So really, yeah, what we are talking about here is the intent. We want to use the IPS observation pregnancy, right? That's we're using this known profile, right? And yes, we may have to vary it to make it work with AU core. We want to constrain it to the use of pregnant only, and then that aligns with the advice we have from AU CDI. There were some other comments in here. Kathleen noted that the Meteor metadata has permissible values of yes, pregnant, no, not pregnant, and not stated. I also made note that the current draft of the pregnancy status IPS has some additional values in here as well. And basically stating that reinforces the need to constrain eRequesting to the use of pregnant only at the moment, because there's no contention over the use of that, but there is contention over the use of the other values, which may be changing, may evolve, and the like. Kathleen also raised here, but if we constrain to pregnant, that it does not provide an option for not stated, inadequately described. And my response to that the proposal we've outlined is to only allow the pregnant status of pregnant for the observation, and no other values would be supported until AU CDI and TDG develop pregnancy summary data group. The cardinality of the pregnancy status observation on AU eRequesting diagnostic request profile will be 0 to 1, which would mean for eRequesting R1 that the observation is only provided when asserting a pregnancy status of pregnant. So you would only provide the observation if you're saying they are pregnant. If the pregnancy status is not stated or inadequately described, then no pregnancy status observation would be included with the diagnostic request. So basically only providing the observation if you are stating they're pregnant. But anything else, you are not providing the observation. You have the option to put things in notes or anything else if you want to provide other information, but would only be asserting they're pregnant. Kathleen?
Is there any risk by not having the not pregnant option?
Yes, that's the advice we have from AU CDI, is they are not comfortable with us using the other values until they have done the analysis on that and picked it up.
So, for instance, every male that has true male that has a request should automatically just be not pregnant.
Well, in this case, you're not providing the observation. So if they're you're not asserting that they're not pregnant, you're not stating that they're pregnant, right? So the only statement here is if they are pregnant. Anything else you are silent, and you wouldn't provide the observation. So there is no need to say not pregnant. You're just not providing the observation. otherwise you're asserting that they are not pregnant, and it's essentially an assertion then.
But isn't that correct? For men who are having a request, isn't that correct? Not pregnant, or for myself, who's impossible to get pregnant, it would be not pregnant.
Yeah, but that's the advice we have here from the AUCDI, is that they're only comfortable with us using pregnant until they have worked through those other values.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're very concerned about the many. They're very concerned about not pregnant and what that means, but they're not so concerned about it being pregnant. Because we're not stated, not provided is not saying not pregnant. It's just saying we don't know. We're pregnant saying we know they're pregnant.
Yoni?
Yeah, Michael, I'm just wondering if putting, in terms of cardinality, not just pregnant and not pregnant, but possibly pregnant, would be a good addition towards the future. I understand what was the advice, but I just think moving us towards the future, just adding that one extra cardinality would sort of make sense.
Yeah. So this is where the AUCDI and the clinical design group is providing the clinical guidance for us. So while we might think technically it makes more sense, we really need the guidance from them on how these clinical decisions. And they've clearly given us this direction of they're only comfortable with stating pregnancy at this point in time until AUCDI has worked through these additional states.
Been very contentious with them.
It has, yeah. And one of the problems we have here is we have a clinical design group, and this is supposed to be clinically led. And they're distinct from this technical design group, which is doing the fire implementation. So we do need to follow their lead on the clinical advice that we're getting from them.
We also looked at about 13, 14 private pathology forms, and they all had like a pregnancy tick box. I think there was one that had a not pregnant, but the majority just had a pregnancy tick box. In comparison with fasting, almost all of them had fasting, not fasting, like 2 tick boxes, right? But for pregnancy, they just had pregnancy, except for one of them.
And you'll see in the draft of the current AUCDI R2 some advice around the not pregnant too, about having to provide justification if you are saying not pregnant, right? Because it's a point in time. They may not be pregnant tomorrow, but they may be pregnant tomorrow. May not be pregnant today, but they may be pregnant tomorrow. Like if they're saying they are not pregnant, you need to provide the justification to say why they are not pregnant, or why they cannot be pregnant. But they are also looking at other scenarios as well as in the full spectrum, like the whole the example they've provided here about trying to conceive, including IVF and things like that. So how to provide more specific information about their pregnancy status.
This is also a step forward, because in the older HL7 version 2 ordering, there is no concept passed. People write in clinical notes pregnant. Stonic even has code that scans clinical notes for the word pregnant. Which is a little ridiculous. So this is a step up from current ordering, which just has no way of communicating pregnant or not pregnant at all.
And this will evolve. Like this is the starting point, right? So we're going through this is saying being able to have a pregnancy observation so that you can state that they are pregnant is a step forward, but it is not complete. The AUCDI R3, when it comes off their backlog and pull it off their backlog into a future AUCDI release, we will get further advice on how to move forward with this, which then we can evaluate from the technical group and work out how we implement that. So this is essentially giving us the ability to do something now without being contentious or causing issues, and take a step forward. But it won't be the end. This will come around and expand in the future.
I would like to motion to approve this feature proposal? Pregnancy status.
I would like to be a second.
Okay. Just before we vote on that, are there any other questions or issues anyone would like to raise?
I just wanted to touch on, scroll down a little bit. You've got this
Yeah.
EDC member reference. No, sorry, the profile.
Oh, sorry.
Just the bottom of the profile there. See, has member reference to an observation of EDD.
That's
I'm not,
optional.
yeah, I'm not against it. I'm just sort of pointing out it's there because I don't think we've ever really pointed at it and said that's there. I don't think it's a problem. It's optional. They're going to give us. Oh yeah, we're enabling that as well. So it's possible that the observation could have another observation that says this is the estimated date of delivery. I don't see a problem with it. I'm just pointing it out.
We may find we need to refine this from when we get some implementation experience with it.
Does the S mean they have it's optional?
Must support.
So if you know it, you have to give it. I'm just like my
yeah.
My knee-jerk response was I wasn't intending to have that, but it's there. You know?
Yeah.
We may end up having to reprofile this, but we just want this as a start.
Yeah, I think it's clear we're going to have to reprofile it. But yeah, we want this intent is what we're really going for, isn't it?
And I think there's a lot of water to go under the bridge, especially if ACDI start to take this down a whole other track of other kinds of pregnancy statuses that don't map to the IPS. And at that stage, are they going to come up with, we're going to have to create a whole new profile, and then we would have to profile that profile because while they're looking at pregnancy status in the whole for all uses, we're not looking at pregnancy status for all uses. We're only looking at for diagnostic requesting at present.
Yeah. And there's only sort of two use cases I know is one is no harm, like you don't want to harm pregnant women because we didn't know they were pregnant, and pathology reference ranges. We want to provide the appropriate reference ranges.
Okay. We had a motion from Steph and second. Zelia, was you second again?
Yes, yeah, I was
Yep.
second.
No other further comments or amendments we want to make before I launch the vote?
There's a comment there from Rosemary around antenatal screening and estimated date of delivery.
Okay. Yep. So that's in there to be used if we want. But yep, we can see how appropriate some of these are things when we move forward. All right, well, I will launch the poll. Launch poll. Okay, hopefully you can see that poll. So that's the vote on this pregnancy status speech proposal. Describe. Okay, looks like most people voted there pretty quickly. I'll just give you another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And that poll, share the results. So we had 26 plus 1, so 27 affirmative, and 1 negative, and we have 5 abstained. So that motion has passed. That's excellent. That's been a tough one. It's been a tough one for us. What the IG authors will do is they will take that away now and work on how best to implement it. Come back to the TDG once that's done, so we can walk through how it's been implemented with that intent. They'll work through the options and see what's going to work best for us, and then we can test that out at the Connectathon, hopefully. See how it goes.
Can Michael, just to say that at Magentis we use the IPS pregnancy status, and pretty sure Telstra Health does, but they can speak for themselves.
Yeah, okay, that's good to know. All right. Next proposal, fasting, timing, and quantity feature proposal. So again, this one got sent out with the others last week. So we've got a proposal here for fasting, which is a recommendation relating to the fasting state of the patient. The proposal is looking at adding an extension to the eRequesting diagnostic request that's bound to the NCTS pathology fasting status value set. Looking at timing, which is the requested timing for the provision of the service, and where we can reuse the existing service request occurrence element, specific guidance and obligations for AU eRequesting, and then quantity support. This can support Rule 3 exemption with informative number of tests requested, and using the existing service request quantity element with specific guidance and obligations for eRequesting. So I will jump to that proposal. Pregnancy. Oh. In the chat. Okay, so there is a feature branch with this as well. If you did want to have a look at it, you can actually click this link and have a browse through the actual profile changes here, how it may look. This is just a draft. This is sort of indicates how it may look, but when we actually implement it, it will likely vary from this because it's just a draft to give an indication of what it may look like. So going through this proposal, looking at the AU eRequesting data for interoperability advice from this. So they have in AU eRec DI R1 a data element definition for fasting. So recommendation relating to the fasting state of the patient at the time of specimen collection. So this is the recommendation. So this would be from the placer saying what the recommendation is for fasting for collection. We've also clarified, so there was a proposed value set here of fasting and not fasting, clarified with the AU eRequesting DI authors that they said that value set aligns with the NCTS pathology fasting value set that already exists, and they would recommend that we use that. So we clarified that with them. And the proposal here is to add a new request fasting codable concept extension to the eRequesting diagnostic request, so the abstract profile. So this would apply to both imaging and pathology, with a must support element, the cardinality of 0 to 1, and would bind to the NCTS pathology fasting value set. There is a note down here. We were looking at potentially a different value for fasting. There is a SNOMED CT code here after fasting. And the difference between that was, one was, I'm going to get this wrong now. One is, the first one is a qualifier value, and the other one was a finding. So it was determining whether the qualifier may be more appropriate than a finding, because it was a request for fasting rather than a finding that they are fasting. But the fasting finding was deemed the most appropriate based on the guidance from the AU eRec DI authors and its inclusion already in that fasting status value set. So it was considered, but AU eRec DI had recommended this. It's already in that value set, so it seems most appropriate to stick with that. We've also got some obligations in here, which are our default obligations, by the way, which is the populate if known. So if the placer knows it, they should populate it. Otherwise, it's left blank. Any comments on that? Any concerns? No. Does anyone want a motion to accept that?
Can anyone talk to the decision at the bottom? It was funny. It was wrong.
I think I could probably talk to it, but I think you'd need a really good reason not to just use the CDG's recommended value set there. It already exists.
Yeah.
Did you want to pick that fight? Did you want to die on that hill? You know?
Yeah, not really. Yeah. Just the choice between the two is it seems one's more correct than the other, and we haven't picked that one. So I guess it's not an observation, is it? It's an extension. So it has context.
I mean, I think it's reasonable to note, though, Michael, that this ultimately, I think, should be a clinical terminology decision, not a necessarily a AUCDI
authors
decision. So, but I think we have had that kind of discussion. I'm not going to die in the ditch over it. It's there is a lot of semantic disconnections in some of these sets. So it's so be it.
I just wanted to say, yeah, so ones that are qualifier value from a precondition hierarchy. And so this is a precondition. I guess you can say that the precondition is a finding, precondition being qualifier value or finding. Yeah, I think Michael Osborne's, I tend to agree that either seems to suit. I was leaning towards the precondition qualifier as well, but if the CDG are recommending a finding, I think that's okay as well.
Yeah.
And the great thing is we get to have a vote on it.
Yeah, sorry, Michael. I'm just a little bit confused on what reality would that be required, being that obviously fasting is not something that you send on a request and is confirmed at the time as being fasted. And equally, there is no request that asks you to be fasting, because that's not going to be very useful. So at a very clinical level, when exactly is that code even used?
If you're requesting a glucose, you might want it fasting, right? So it's common for people to do fasting glucose, and so the doctor.
No, I understand that. I understand that. I'm one of them. But like what I'm saying is that on the request there is I've never requested a non-fasting glucose either, and there is different value sets for that already. So I'm just asking for the fasting specifically. When is that required?
Of about 13 pathology forms we looked at, all of them had fasting, and 90% of them had not fasting as tick boxes on them.
But does that confirm anything to you guys? Let's say it says fasting. How does that make a difference to the patient when you actually see them? It doesn't actually change anything to you, does it? Like, let's say somebody ticks the fasting on the box where you send electronically. How does that actually change something when the patient arrives?
You have to confirm with the patient that they are fasting.
Yeah, it's a commandment to the patient. And really, remember, we have a patient actor role. So if we were going to render this for the patient's purpose, it's reaffirming them that you should be fasting for this.
Or create potential mistakes.
Sorry, what do you mean by or create mistakes?
So what I'm saying is, let's say you have a form that asks them to fast, right? Yeah. That they need to tick a box that this is a fasting test, right? That presumably that's where it's used.
Yes.
But it's either there is already a fasting test that we know of, like the one we just mentioned, fasting glucose, probably the most common, you know. But if they need to fast for a procedure or for a scan or for anything like that, what it can create is a illusion that the box is ticked, therefore everything is okay, but the patient actually hasn't read it, hasn't done anything about it, and so on.
Oh, so we never take the tick box on the request form as meaning the patient actually fasted. It enables us to ask the question to the patient, did you fast? And there's a difference between the form coming into a collection center and the registration of that sample being collected. So the form might say fasting, and we say, did you fast? And they go, no, I didn't. Let's go, would you like to come back tomorrow? They go, no, I want it done. And therefore, in the collection system, we would say we wouldn't tick fasting. They did not fast.
And hence my point about how mistakes can be made. So what I'm trying to say is that this fasting, not fasting thing should really mean, that the patient should fast. That's what we really want to happen in reality, right? That's a request.
Agree.
It's a request. That is the
Yeah, it's
definition here from AU eRequesting. It's a recommendation related to the fasting state of the patient at the time. So it's a recommendation. It's a request for saying we're requesting you to fast, or you don't have to fast.
That's why it was specified as a precondition. So a precondition for the test is you should be fasting.
Yeah, that's why the other SNOMED code got rid of this confusion, right?
Agree. So this is where so that's why I agree with you.
Okay. So we would need to go back, if we want to change this, we would need to go back to AUCDI and get the clinical.
Is it possible to change the extension name so the context is?
So the current
fasting,
proposed name here is request fasting.
Yeah.
I mean, we can call that whatever we want, but that is, and we can obviously put the description, the short text about what this is, what the intent of it is, which may be aligned with what we have here for from eRequesting about the recommendation relating to fasting at the time. I mean, we want to apply this to imaging and pathology, so we wouldn't use the term specimen collection, but it's a recommendation related to the fasting state of the patient. It's just the recommendation.
What if you made it fasting intent rather than request? Request fasting sounds weird because it's a request in itself, right? Like fasting intent, fasting. Like it's
It still doesn't.
It's not a fact.
It still doesn't solve the issue if I'm running a request like this through my machine learning, and it's going to have awareness of the SNOMED hierarchy, and it actually thinks that this is a finding, then it's going to imply a different meaning to it. And this was a precondition related to a
But you're ignoring the context of where the SNOMED code was found. I mean, you don't just like put all SNOMED codes found in a blob of health data through a machine and make it an assumption just because there is the codes existing in a medical record that they all are true. Like
no, but even in the context of this, there's no semantics with associated with request fasting or whatever. That doesn't have any meaning. It's a label. Whereas SNOMED hierarchy has taken this code and actually has represented it as with some semantic background or semantic intent to it, which we're kind of going, well, the display value makes sense to us and therefore we'll use it without the, and that's why I think we end up in this conversation around by specifying this as a finding, we're basically saying we're coding a finding. We're not coding an intent. This is now, anyway.
I mean, this is a HL7 extension of precondition. It's used for many preconditions, not just for fasting. So basically, semantically, what we're trying to say here is there is a precondition, and the precondition is a finding of fasting. So at the time of collection, we're asking the collector to basically ensure that they have a finding of fasting.
Met the precondition.
But they can't. That's
What do you mean
tautology.
They can't?
Because at the time they make the order, they can't have a finding of fasting for something happening tomorrow.
No, but it's a precondition that the collection, that they are fasting at the time of collection. So it is the collector that is making that finding to satisfy the precondition. So, but obviously we're getting really deep into the I'm a little bit confused about what is the proposal here, because AUCDI is saying that we want findings, but then there's this warning. I'm just a little bit confused about.
That was just saying that we considered it. So the proposal is to use what AU eRequesting recommended, and the NCTS pathology fasting value set, which is a pre-existing value set. So this was just a note to say that it had been considered, and we went back and asked AU CDI authors about it, and they came back and said their preference was this, and the existing value set. They said the AU eRequesting value set aligns with the NCTS pathology fasting value set and would recommend its use.
And where is that fasting set actually used by anyone?
Good question.
It's probably a hard question to answer.
Just one other thing too.
We're not putting orders into the My Health record. We're not using fasting status in V2 messages. So whilst
it's specific to eRequesting, Angus, and it's a fairly new value set. So I'd be surprised if it's being used yet.
Yeah.
And has it been created as a result of AUCDI?
Yes, it's specifically created as a result of AUCDI.
But I mean, just going back to the semantics again, if we think about this, it is literally a name value pair, right? We've got an element called precondition and its value is something. After fasting doesn't sound like a precondition to me. Maybe, but I don't know.
We're debating between structure or terminology, aren't we? Like, are you expressing your intent in the structure, or are you expressing it in
semantics
terminology?
or syntax?
I've seen this argument go.
Yeah.
Michael Osborne, are you able to also comment on not fasting? Is that a finding?
It's actually a SWEC, so it's situation. It's sort of like a negated finding, which they put in situations in SNOMED. Yeah.
We haven't discussed that. We've still got the semantics of it as well.
Yeah, so they're coming from two different hierarchies.
We actually did try to seek out what does not fasting actually mean. And we didn't get very far.
Yeah, I think it's just an indicator to the patient that they don't need to go to the bother of fasting when they're having their PSA done, you know, because it doesn't mean anything to fast for that test. And there's probably 4 or 5 or a handful of tests where fasting actually matters.
Is
and
there
for
any
the majority, they will be not fasting.
Well, I agree with that. Yeah.
Are there any tests where you should not be?
No, so yeah,
fasting?
that's for the. I did a follow-up on it. I wrote an email to the scientists in the lab asking, and I haven't had an answer because I too didn't know what the use case was for not fasting, even though it's on every single form. Every single form has fasting and not fasting separate tick boxes. But I haven't got to like why. Like, is this just because it's clearer to patients to say, oh no, you don't need to fast for that one, or is this because there are specific clinical tests where it's essential that you do not fast?
It's an indicator to patients and collectors that you don't need to fast for this test. It's just a very quick screen to say, yes, you need to fast, or no, you don't need to fast.
But it's undetermined, and that would be no tick on the fasting. Otherwise, we've broken the common semantics of the user interface, right? Because that's why we've left off now not pregnant, and that doesn't mean you don't have to be pregnant or pregnant. So I think we've got to be careful here about consistency in some of this.
I mean, the crime is made on all the forms, isn't it? Like, all the forms have the word fasting and a tick box. Now, does that mean that they were fasting or should have been fasting? Like, on the human paper form, we just gloss over this, don't we?
Even worse is that non-fasting or not fasting is actually a descendant of clinical finding absent, which I think is an error.
But Angus is completely right. Yeah, like there's never a test in radiology or pathology. There's not, that you need to not fast for, So it's just not. I mean, yes, some are needed for fasting, and as he was pointing out, if the understanding will be that is just a tick box to alert everyone that they need to ask, well, that is the correct intent and the correct procedure. But there's not a test that I'm aware of as a clinician for many, many, many years that I requested my patients specifically don't fast for.
Yeah. And I think that it's on, not fasting is on the forms just as a convenience for the patient because they forgot whether they were meant to fast or not. And then, if it says not fasting, they can have peace of mind that they didn't need to.
Although when
That's
I go
correct.
in and I get asked by the collector to say, have you fasted? So, and that goes back to my point about it being a finding. That's them basically asking the question about me for fasting, and hence that would be recorded as a finding because I've indicated that I have fasted.
But that's a different context. That's when you've presented to have your blood taken, right? And that's not.
But it fulfills the precondition.
Yeah.
So I think we've got some options here. We accept this as is, or we go back to the CDG and seek clarification on these values, because this is the advice that has come from the clinical group. So I think we will be able to change that specifically without consulting them further.
I could live with this but I don't like the name of the extension, request fasting, because it sounds like
we can call that whatever we like.
It sounds like the fasting status of this request, where if it was like fasting intent or precondition fasting precondition was the name of the extension, it would be far clearer that this is an intent, not just a fact.
I'll move this proposal with that additional change from Angus. So we can rename the extension to whatever Angus wants to call it.
It's really
whatever
a
I
slice.
want.
We're not renaming the extension, we're renaming the slice.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, the slice, yeah.
The request fasting would be renamed to, now I'm filling on the spot, fasting intent or...
I like what you said, fasting precondition or something.
Fasting precondition? Yeah, fasting precondition.
Yeah, I can live with that. I agree. Less mistakes, but then...
Yeah. And it is a precondition extension, so that aligns with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we have a second?
That's my job. We have a second?
Sorry, Mike.
No, you're good.
Happy to second.
Thanks, Yanni. All right. So I will launch a poll on that. It's a good discussion. Launch poll. Okay. Hopefully you can see. Also, that's to accept this proposal with the rename of the slice to fasting precondition.
And this yellow box down the bottom, this is just for this conversation.
That's all it was there. It was just a note to say it was, and it facilitated this conversation. If that box wasn't there, we potentially wouldn't have discussed it in this meeting.
No.
So
we don't want that box there in the spec because it just makes it more confusing.
So this is just the proposal page. So yes, that's not the intent for that box to go in the spec. Okay, it just looks like most people voted. Just give it another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the poll. So we've got 19 plus 1, so 20 affirmative, 0 negative, and 7 abstain. So that motion has passed. Okay, we've got 10 minutes left. We'll see if we can get through another 1 or 2 of these quickly. If not, we'll carry them over to the next meeting, which is fine. We'll see. So the next one was on timing. Again, in AU eRec DIR1, the data element definition for this. So the requested timing for the provision of the service. And this data element supports recording the intended timing for the service in a variety of formats, ranging from precise details such as specific date and time to textual descriptions such as next available. Timing data type also supports handling complex scheduling scenarios, including recurring service. So the proposal here is to make the existing service request occurrence element must support with specific guidance and obligations for eRequesting. Andy, did you want to talk through the text here you had proposed as the guidance?
Yeah, so I put very little constraint on the 3 timing options that are available because I don't think we have sufficient experience to discount or constrain those timing options. While Michael did mention Rule 3 exemption, we are not at this point looking to automate the direct support of rule 3 exemption processing, but mainly if you wanted to include the constraint of a service request's applicable time period, you could. One of the major use cases for this is that you want to delay pathology request, and that's the kind of the most common one we see in production use today. And obviously these three cater for all sorts of options. So we're being pretty open, and we'll see what goes in practical experience with it.
Okay. Anyone have any questions or comments or would like to motion to accept that proposal? Pretty much all we've done there is say it's must support. We've left it completely open, could be date, time period, or timing, and we're just adding that sort of context in the description there, that how there's a variety of ways it can be used. We're not going to constrain it.
We could in future look to make this mandatory, and then you default to 1, or you would use a value of 1 for every normal request. But again, I think that'll come with time.
So you mean you default to today's date?
Yeah, sorry, I was thinking quantity.
The next one's quantity. You're one step ahead.
No, the period could actually be the period through which imaging requests or pathology are valid. So the imaging has no end date, whereas pathology's got a 12-month end date.
So I'm happy. We're not going to do any, like, the lab's not going to process this and deny a test. It's literally so that there's the ability to print on a form rendering from the data to say, hey, do it in this period, so that patients can know, oh, I wasn't meant to go tomorrow, I was meant to go 6 months from now. But
there's a note in here that it's informative only.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm happy to propose to got the word.
Motion.
Motion this. I motion this, Angus.
I'll second it.
Okay. All right. No other questions. I'll launch the poll. We launch poll. Okay, you should see that now to accept this timing proposal. Looks like we got most. Let's give it 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'll end that poll there. So we have 21 plus 1 in the chat. So 22 affirmative, we have 0 negative, and we have 4 abstain. So that motion has passed as well. So we've got 5 minutes left. There's one more on this page in the speech proposals. We'll see if we can get through this one. If not, we'll carry it over. We can start the discussion. So this one's about quantity, and AU eRequesting data for interoperability does not provide any guidance for quantity, and the AU eRecDI authors have no position as it's out of scope for their context. So that means we have no guidance from the CDG, which means we've got room to move on this. So the proposal here is to make the existing service request quantity element must support with specific guidance and obligations for eRequesting. The service request quantity would be constrained to quantity and range data types only, excluding ratio. And there's some guidance here around it's an informative value indicating the number of tests requested. If not provided, the quantity is 1. For Rule 3 exemption, the value may be greater than 1. However, the server does not currently support tracking multiple fulfillments from a single order. So it's informative only, just to indicate the number of tests that you would want. I think there is a comment on here. So Steph has proposed we change value indicating the number of repeats requested, value indicating the number of repeat tests requested. So where's that? So we've just got the number of tests. Steph, has this changed?
Yeah, I agree with Michael Osborne. Repeat tests requested.
So in the number, okay, so in here, an informative value indicating the number of repeat tests requested rather than just of tests requested.
Yeah.
It's the same thing repeated. Yep. So that's a proposed amendment there. I don't think there's any other comments related to that. So it's really just informative. There's some guidance there. Gives you an indication.
Michael, wouldn't the value then change if you change the wording to number of repeat tests requested and you say the default is 1, then it suggests that there is 1 repeat test requested or 0?
Good pick up.
Good point.
Very good point.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that we don't actually talk about the tests requested, but the actual fulfillments requested. And in this case, the typical thing is 1 fulfillment for a test request, as opposed to n fulfillments for a test request. You're allowing for multiple fulfillments of the same test.
Yeah. Okay. So change the word test to fulfillments. Is that?
Well, unless that confuses everyone, but that makes more sense to me.
To instances, because it's a service request, right?
Well,
no, it's not. It's actually the fulfillment. So the way we would implement this is the test specification is not repeated. It's actually the fulfillment that you allow multiple fulfillments based on a single service request.
Okay. We've only got a minute left, so we'll either carry this one over, or unless someone's got something we think we might agree on in that 1 minute.
I'm happy to move.
Why do we add repeats? Yeah. Well, I don't know.
I think repeats is going to,
as it is.
I think repeats is going to cause confusion. I would just motion to accept this with an amendment to talk about the number of fulfillments requested.
Okay.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay, Yoni, you second that?
Fulfillments of this test, because it's about 1 test. If you say, it's number of tests requested, that might be across the whole episode, not just this service request.
But this
is
is
on the base. Is this applying to the
this is
DI
only
as
in
well?
1 test.
So DI doesn't do tests, do exams.
True. So
Service fulfillment.
Services, yeah.
So we had a motion there for the number of fulfillments requested. Do we want to change that? We're out of time.
I heard a second.
Was there a Yoni seconded it? And any other discussion?
I'm happy to second it. I think fulfillments is fine.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I will launch the vote. We'll get through this.
God, I think all the money we'd have made if it was repeat test 1.
Sorry about that.
Good pickup. All right. I'll just give you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. So we have 17 affirmative, we have 0 negative, and we have 4 plus 1, so 5 abstain. So that motion has passed. So thank you, everyone. It was good, got a good few decisions there. The rest of these will carry over to the next meeting. I'll just jump too far. Our next meeting is we've got next Friday a track kickoff meeting. Invites will go out for those shortly. Next TDG is on the 13th of March. And then we have the TDG meeting the day before the Connectathon. We have the Connectathon and then another meeting there. So that's our forward schedule, and anything we didn't cover off today will carry over to next meeting. So thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks all.
Thanks. Bye.